It's day 2 of the virtual hearings into Western Cape Judge President John Hlophe's attempt to set aside the Judicial Service Commission's impeachment findings. The recommendation followed a ruling by the Judicial Conduct Tribunal that found Hlophe guilty of gross misconduct. For more on this, let's speak to Judge's Matter researcher, Mbekezeli Benjamin, who speaks to us from the Western Cape. Mr. Benjamin, it's day 2 of this particular court hearing, and we understand it's a full bench of judges that are sitting over this matter. How did day 1 go to your understanding? What were the highlights, basically?
Good morning, Goli, and good morning to the viewers at home. So day 1 was basically Judge Hlophe's legal team setting out their key arguments for why they want the JSC's decision to be set aside. So we heard from Advocate Thabani Masuku, who's the lead advocate for Judge Hlophe, and he basically set out 2 key legal arguments for why the decision by the JSC was wrong. The first argument was that the JSC read the law wrong. He says that the JSC looked at the private conversations between Judge Hlophe and Judge Ngabinde and Jafta and decided that they constitute improper attempts at influencing those 2 judges. And he says in terms of the law, this is not how it should be. He says judges have private conversations all the time, and if you look at even other countries like Canada and the UK, those kinds of private conversations are treated as simply conversations between colleagues and not an attempt at improper influence. The second ground was that the JSC was not properly constituted when it took its decision. So Judge Hlophe takes issue with the presence of acting Deputy Chief Justice Gampepe, who chaired that meeting in the place of Judge Zondo and Judge Mogoeng. And he also takes issue with the presence of Judge Mba, who is a representative of Supreme Court of Appeal President Mandi Samaya. And looking at that, he says those 2 people were not supposed to be in the room, and the fact that they were there unlawfully means that the decision of the JSC was unlawful and should be set aside.
Yeah. Let's talk about what is likely to come, Mr. Benjamin, in the week as it progresses. One of the respondents on this matter is the Speaker of the National Assembly. Let's explore Parliament's role in the removal of judges. What do the rules say?
So the Constitution says that the JSC must make a finding of misconduct against the judge. And once the JSC makes a finding of misconduct, then they can recommend that the judge be impeached or removed from office. And that impeachment is done by Parliament. So the JSC sends its recommendation to Parliament, and Parliament must consider the JSC's finding and decide whether or not to remove a judge from office. And here, in this case, the JSC has made the recommendation and sent it to Parliament. Now Parliament is dealing with it. Yes. What Judge Hlophe says is that Parliament must actually restart the whole process from scratch. He says that the JSC did such a bad job that Parliament is now left in the position of having to redo the work of the JSC, of having to consider all the evidence and all the witnesses and make such a finding. Now we'll hear from the representative of Parliament on Wednesday who say that this is not provided for in the law. They say that the Parliament cannot reopen an inquiry into this. Once the JSC has made a finding, that's the end of the matter.
And that's exactly the point I was driving at, to say the Speaker seems to quibble in court papers that what Judge Hlophe is trying to do is actually do the work of the JSC, which was basically the very recommendation that came out to say that, or the verdict that came out to say that he was guilty of gross misconduct. Why would Judge Hlophe try to do this when it is not provided for in law? Basically, is this to try and drag out a process that has been ongoing since 2008?
Well, it's not clear whether it's an attempt at trying to drag out the process. It could very well be, but the reasons that he puts forward in his court papers is that the JSC itself, in terms of how it came to the decision on impeachment, he says it was influenced by improper motives. He cites Judge President Mlambo as being one of those who was emotional about this decision and who argued quite strongly for impeachment of Judge Hlophe. And he also looks at the issue of the composition of the JSC. He says that in terms of the law, it wasn't composed properly. And so he says time and time again, the JSC has failed to act according to the law, and it is itself a threat to judicial independence. So Parliament must put a stop to this and must intervene. That's according to his legal papers.
Mbekezeli Benjamin, let's leave it there. Thank you very much for your insights on this. Researcher at the organization Judges Matter.